want to say a few words about Stop Making Sense, the concert film by Talking Heads, directed by Jonathan Demme, that came out in 1984. I have a very long history with this film, although I didn't see it until 1985. And this is the film that changed my life in many different ways over a period of several years. And it continues to inform my life to this day because this is the movie that made me realize that I was to become a musician. And it was a gradual transition from not knowing that to discovering that and to making it happen and everything. But yeah, I have likened it before to the children's book by Shel Silverstein, The Giving Tree, which is one of my favorite books when I was a kid. And if you're not familiar, in The Giving Tree, this little kid has this apple tree that he spends a lot of time on. He plays in it. He sells apples from it when he gets older for extra money. He cuts off branches of it to create things for himself. And eventually, when he's an old man, the tree is reduced to a stump. But even then, it provides a place for him to sit and rest. And that's kind of what this film has been for me in a way. It's not a stump now. It's still very sturdy, wonderful movie that has much to offer the world. It's a long story, so I'm going to start at the beginning, and hope you stick with me because this is kind of fun. I think so, anyway. It's kind of funny that Talking Heads came to have such a tremendous influence on me as a young man, because when I first heard them, just a couple years before this, I didn't like them at all. And I remember very vividly, I have a very vivid memory of watching MTV one summer at my dad's house. And the music video for Burning Down the House came on, and I was really weirded out by it. But for some reason, I just kept watching it. Like, this is weird and disturbing, and what is this? And then Mark Goodman comes on right after that and says, "It's Burning Down the House. The Talking Heads, one of their best," or something, words to that effect. And I remember going, "Ugh, that's their best? Who are these guys? What is this weird crap?" And I think I had also seen Once in a Lifetime, which I also thought was, weird. Like, what is this guy doing? All that stuff. And that's just where my head was. My mind had not expanded enough to appreciate that kind of music at the time. I did love the Beatles. And it's kind of funny because I liked their later weird stuff more. But for some reason, Talking Heads, Tomorrow Never Knows, Day in the Life, Within You, Without You, all that stuff was not weird enough to prepare me for the world of Talking Heads at that point in my life. But fast forward a couple years, I had new friends. I was at a different school. I was in high school. I was at the High School for the Performing and Visual Arts in Houston, and had two very close friends of mine, Paul and Nathan. And we, our bond as friends had a hell of a lot to do with music. So we were all kind of discovering and introducing each other to different artists. And one of them at the beginning, that artist that we really got into, was Peter Gabriel. And this is back before So came out. This is before Sledgehammer and Big Time and all that stuff. This is back in the days of Shock the Monkey and Intruder and No Self Control and all these strange songs that he had before he hit it big. And that, when I first heard that stuff, I was, it was kind of like hearing Talking Heads for the first time. I was like, whoa, what is this stuff? But eventually it started finding its way into my brain. And I started digging it, and this is around the time, 15, 16 years old. That's when your brain is really kind of starting to blossom. And I was kind of finding, this is around the age I was kind of really discovering my creative energies in a way. I was kind of focusing my creative efforts at that point, finding my voice in a way, if that makes any sense. So come around to the summer of 1985, and I'm a sophomore, or I'm between my sophomore and junior years in high school. To back up a little bit, for my 15th birthday, the year before, 1984, my dad buys me this baby, the very first Apple Macintosh, which I absolutely loved. And I used it all the time, all throughout high school and into my early college years too. Obviously, I played games on it. I wrote papers on this thing, countless papers, wrote short stories on it. This thing was, talk about Giving Tree. This thing did a lot for me when I was a teenager. Love that machine. It doesn't work anymore, sadly. Last time I tried to turn it on, smoke came out of the top. So that was, so I got that in 1984. And in the summer of 1985, for my 16th birthday, I got this, which is the Apple modem. And those of you who aren't old enough to remember the 80s might be wondering what I do with a modem, because we didn't have the internet yet. There was no internet. But we did have these things called bulletin board systems, or BBSs for short. They were things that you would call up on a dial phone. Your phone would sit on top of this. I had a push button phone with the old fashioned receiver on it. And then the phone line would come out. Well, actually, the phone line would come out of the wall into here, then come out of here into the phone, so you could still make regular calls. And then there's this nice little switch here. Turn it off and on. And then this light would turn on. I don't even know if it works anymore. So you'd call up these bulletin board systems, and they were essentially like mini internets, essentially, but it was only an internet between two computers at a time. It was your computer and the computer you were calling on the phone. And most of these bulletin board systems were one at a time. You'd call them up, and you had a time limit. And they were essentially like command line interfaces, and they were essentially message boards, basically. You log in, it'd give you this elaborate welcome message, and they're all personalized. A lot of these BBSs were run by people out of their closets at home. Some of them by teenagers like me at the time, and so a lot of them. It was an opportunity for these people to kind of create their own little community in a way. So a lot of them had different personalities. One of them that I was really fond of, he was somewhere in the Houston area. I never actually met any of these people in person. He ran a bulletin board system called Coney Island of the Mind, which was named after the poetry book by Lawrence Ferlinghetti. Coney Island was a great board. I used to call it up all the time. And one of my friends on there was named Laura. And I didn't actually, again, like I said, I never met any of these people in person. Laura I had actually met originally on another board, one of the first boards I called up, where just to get the ball rolling, I posted a message asking if there was anybody out there who liked Peter Gabriel. So I thought, I don't know, some way to break the ice, right? And I got several responses, and I think now, I only just thought of this recently, I think they were all women. I should have known that I was onto something then. But Laura was really cool. She was a year older than me. She had a boyfriend. I think we were sending poetry back and forth, and we're talking about music, and she was telling me about her plans for college and so forth. And I still had 2 years left of high school. So it was like, well, bye. I guess this isn't happening, right? One day, one of these messages, she tells me as we're chatting about whatever, she says, hey, do you like Talking Heads? Because I just saw that Stop Making Sense is coming to the River Oaks Theater this weekend. You really should go see it. She had seen it already, I guess the year before. She said, oh, it's awesome. You got to go watch it. At this point, because of what had happened to my brain from listening to Peter Gabriel for a few months, I'd only really gotten into Peter Gabriel like maybe 3 or 4 months or before that. I was much more receptive. I'm sure it had something to do with it. It was a girl who was inviting me to go see a movie, right? But I was like, I had seen at that point, the song Road to Nowhere was on MTV a lot. And I remember that I had seen it, and I was like, this is actually pretty cool. I like this. So when she suggested that, I was like, you know what? I think I want to go see this movie. So I suggested my friend Nathan and Paul that we go see this. Paul opted not to see it. He dropped us off. Nathan and I went in to see it, and then Paul picked us up afterwards. We went to go see another movie. That's one of the reasons why we went to go see this early in the afternoon, which is probably why I think that is why I didn't see Laura, because I found out later she went to a different later showing. That kind of screwed up any chance I had of actually meeting her that day. So, and what the second movie was, unfortunately, I don't have any record of what that was, but I was just looking to see what movies came out that week. Explorers had just come out that day. It's quite possible it was that, but it could have been Back to the Future. It could have been Goonies, which just only came out a few weeks before that. St. Elmo's Fire was out at the time. Oh, and Beyond Thunderdome. Fletch. Could have been any one of those, because I know we saw all of those movies, but it was back in those days, man. We just saw everything. We saw all the movies because there wasn't anything else to do. There's nothing on TV. We had like 3 cable channels in MTV. That was about it. So Nathan and I go into theater. Paul goes off to run errands, and he, planning to come swing back and pick us up later. And we go into River Oaks Theater. River Oaks Theater, by the way, in case you don't know, we still have it in Houston. Thank goodness. It's been saved. We've almost lost it a couple of times, but we've had it for a long time. It's this gorgeous Bijou era movie theater. And at that time, it's now a 3-plex. It's a renovated old theater with a big screen on the first floor and 2 smaller screens upstairs that used to be a balcony. Well, back in summer of 1985, it was still a balcony, and it was a gorgeous theater. It still is gorgeous, but it was even more gorgeous back in those days. So Nathan and I sitting in the movie theater. There's not a whole lot of people there. I think we might have been the only people in the theater when we first got there. And we're just sitting there yakking away. And at some point in our conversation, waiting for the movie to start, we realized that the music that's playing over the sound system is actually really good. And we stopped, and one of us asked, "What is this anyway?" And we were like, "I don't know. Is it David Bowie? I don't think so. Let's go find out." So we went downstairs to the office and poked our head in and knocked. Said, "Hey, can you tell us what this cool music is that's playing?" "Oh yeah, it's Talking Heads." We're like, "Oh, of course, Little Creatures, new album. It's great. You should check it out." So I was like, "Wow, cool. Okay." So then we went down, sat down, and watched the movie. I don't know how else to say this. My life changed, and it wasn't like it didn't happen like bam, like it. I didn't immediately realize that my life had changed, but for lack of a better way to put it, it spoke to me. Watching this performance on screen, watching how the musicians were emoting, how they were moving around, how they were interacting with each other, the way they seemed either enjoying what they were doing and having fun with each other, and it spoke to me. And there was something inside me was stirring. It was like I kind of realized, oh, I want to do this. This is something I think that I can do. And it was this really kind of creeping, magical feeling that it took, and it didn't, like I say, it didn't hit me like right then. I didn't walk out of the theater that day saying, "I'm going to go learn how to play guitar." It was a gradual thing that kind of percolated over the next few months. But that's how it started, was that one time because of a girl that I was chatting with whom I never met in person on that computer on a antiquated bulletin board system in the summer of 1985. It blows my mind now to think about that. Like I say, it was a giving tree for me. That was the first phase. That was the first step. That it came back to River Oaks Theater that only that one weekend. This is back when they didn't have movies for weeks at a time. They would get them maybe for a couple of days, and they keep rotating them out. And then it was later in the fall semester of my junior year that Stop Making Sense came to town again at the Greenway Theater, different theater, also sort of an art house type of theater. And actually, at this point, I think it was still owned by General Cinema, but it later got bought out by Landmark, who also owned the River Oaks Theater. So they got Stop Making Sense back, and I think when they got it, they were showing it for several weeks. And I went to go see it again, and was just the more and more I watched it, the more I got into it, the more I was digging on it. By this point, I had bought the album, which didn't have all the songs on it, but it had a lot of them, and it was great album. And then that December, it came back to the River Oaks Theater, and that's when they announced that they were going to show Stop Making Sense every Friday and Saturday at midnight for the foreseeable future. And they did for, I think, at least 2 years. And that's when really the gates flew open for me. But I will tell you all about that in the next video. Thanks for watching, y'all. My name's Chad Smalley. I'll see you next time. Bye.